Vallee here to read for us today. Lillian is completely, I have to say, that she is completely enamored with the natural landscapes of the Central Valley. And that has been inspiring to me as, you know, a relative, not a native, I can't say I'm a newcomer, I've lived here for 22 years, but as not a native to this area, her columns and Stanislaus connection have connected me to the local landscape. Her work, however, far exceeds the confines of this valley. Having received her master's and her PhD in Slavic languages from UC Berkeley, she has worked with and translated some of the masters of the Polish language, including poetic masters, I should say, including Czeslaw Milosz and, I'm going to slaughter it.
Adam Zagajewski? Oh, Witold Gombrowicz. Witold Gombrowicz.
That's the way it's supposed to sound. Originally from Detroit, Lillian is an instructor at MJC, the author of the fantastic foreword of More Than Soil, More Than Sky, an excellent poet, and an essential part of our literary community. Please help me welcome Lillian Vallee.
Thank you to Gillian and all the others who keep these Tuesdays going. It's always an honor for me to be here and to be in such good company. I'll begin at the beginning of my awareness of the world, prompted by a gift from Lee Nicholson, who gave me a book on fractal geometry. And he's going to be present today at the beginning of this reading and then at the end because his legendary generosity abides. The first poem is called Fractal Dreams, and it was inspired directly by that book on fractal geometry. Through the walls of my mother's belly, I quaked at the language of the conqueror, clung to the language of those he had conquered, listened to the first words of my brother speaking in both. But the dreams were all mine, bright as illuminated manuscripts, filled with birds I had yet to see, with trees that had not yet offered me their shade, in the sandbox, on my way to the library, to school, on the exfoliating granite of another world. Even then, dancing around the twisting cord, floating in pulses of language and light, tongue still battened, heart a pinhead, cells arranging themselves into toes and ears, eyelashes and waxy limbs. I was wandering dendritic groves, climbing staircases of genetic codes, only to look down from the top into the rose windows of cathedrals, marveling as only a larva can at moving from air to a temple of skin, the empty choir loft awaiting her small song. This is called Handful of Snow, and it's a poem about what parents can give you that has nothing to do with material things, I guess. The child is not cold. The child is not hungry. She has everything she needs in the world, in her hand. No bombs have fallen to crater the white. Bird baby egg, newborn snow, silver monstrance, bells, bells, bells. And then another one, which is from Detroit, where I grew up, and you've probably been hearing a lot about Detroit. There are a couple of films out right now, Detropia, We Are Not Ghosts, Detroit, An American Autopsy is a book that just came out, and another one, Detroit is the Place to Be. When I was living there in the 50s, it was still in relatively good shape, but suffering from many, many tensions of different kinds. But of course, for me, I was looking at it through a child's eyes, and this is a poem that was inspired by a catechism lesson. I went to a Catholic school in Detroit, and it's called Lesson 6. And actually, it was inspired by the pictures of milk bottles that had little sins, little kidney-shaped sins on them. I'm going to dedicate it to the children who are here tonight and to the parents to make them realize that kids need places where they can be bad. You know, you need that safety valve. When I was 10 and we ran out of milk, I was sent to the corner dairy after dark. First the wilderness of the alley, little black boys pelting white girls with rocks. Then the heavy cold quart. Running to the store in the night, guardian angel at my back, entitled me to lick the cardboard cap clean of the clotted cream. In our catechism book, sins would float in 3 milk bottles, dark kidney shapes you could clear with confession, as if it were a rough and thorough bottle brush. Venial or mortal, they were made to disappear, and the soul was refilled with the milk of God's grace until you went back to the Powerhouse, shouted 4-letter words out loud, and ground the broken glass into dust. The Powerhouse was a place where we went to write nasty words, and usually the winos would hang out there. That's why all the broken glass was there. But it gave us a tremendous freedom to go there and draw dirty pictures and do things. A really important person in my life when I was small was my brother. And when I was little, I was part of his group. And then as he got older and I got a younger sister, I was shunted off with the girls. So this is something that surprised me in a phone conversation that I had with him. Conversation with my brother, June 2000. After I get off the phone, the surprise is all mine. I still hold it against him. His excluding me from his company as he got older, thinking me unfit at 6 for the company of young men not yet 9. Whenever I am left out, tears well up on some vanished street in Detroit. The feeling so violent, not even the memory of the smell of melted chocolate cooling in its many molds as I pass the candy shop can dilute the dark despair. The longing for their antics, conversations about the reasons for war, the Führer's biggest mistake, or when it was exactly that Constantinople fell. Once I saw a news item about Detroit in the TV set, and it was about a woman whose car had broken down, and maybe ran into another car, and a man apparently ran out, and she didn't know whether he was coming out to beat her or to help her, and she jumped off the bridge and killed herself. And it was the first time. It's the MacArthur Bridge in Detroit that leads to Belle Isle. But it awoke all sorts of memories about Detroit, and so that's where this is coming from. Bridge. White over the blue Detroit River, a woman plunged to her death, chased by a man upset that she hit his car. And no one can tell now whether he ran to help or to hurt her, whether he ran to stop or to push. I did not want to see it again, not like this, ambivalent, did not want the water I played in, shattering a living skull. The bridge we crossed every Sunday for an entire childhood, on bus or by car, was our escape, as it was hers, but ours led to fawns, fishing on rocks facing Canada, playing catch with siblings who couldn't catch. I have a photo of my father here, remote, handsome, completely out of place. And my mother too, hair wild, posing, red lips parted, holding a ball, ready to play. That's the impression. I squeeze the photos for all they're worth. Shoe buckles, barrettes, ruffled dress. Something is missing. Post-war joy. They are all pretending they're not flies in a web. Nothing helps, not baptisms, first communions, bakery bread, holidays, Sundays at the beach, on the grass, away from the dust dirt of small backyards, pigeon coops, tomato plants, until they give up, move on to the next disappointment. Maybe I know now what I recognize why the bridge kept returning. Like the dead that won't go away unless you scare them, smear yourself with pitch, cut your hair. It began there, the death in the rescue, before the bones folded up like the lawn chairs we toted across the bridge. It began there, the long sorrow, the slow falling, the exile into air. And then one more bridge, but this time in the San Joaquin Valley, the one that's on 132 that crosses the San Joaquin River. And this is actually practically verbatim what my mother said one day when I was taking her across that bridge. As we drove across the bridge over the San Joaquin, it reminds me, she said, of my childhood river, the Warta, in Poland, how it flooded every spring. The ice floes had to be dynamited. You could pick up stunned fish afterward, trout or pike, and every so often a haystack floated by. The fish were yours for the taking, and I wrapped mine in my brand new winter coat as a surprise for my mother. She was not pleased. The year was 1939, and she knew a war was coming. She had bought me several coats in many sizes, as if preparation could fend off the worst. I remember how we celebrated 2 bridges built in Koło in '38. Schoolgirls marched 4 abreast, and the entire town joined the parade, the festivities. Imagine people rejoicing in bridges. If only we had had another 10 years. They were destroyed in '39. Why the Poles did it, I don't know. The Germans weren't coming that way. Later, we had to cross the Warta on pontoon and plank bridges, very close to the water. I was so afraid. The water seemed too close. I was so afraid. Okay. This one I'm dedicating to Lynn Hansen because we've both had our little Path of the Padres experiences. And Los Banos shows up a couple of times here. There's something about Los Banos Reservoir in that area. It was one of the oldest Yokut settlements in this area. And there seems to be, every time we go on that trip, some sort of upwelling of loss or sorrow, something. But I was headed there one day, and this is a poem. I was taking my son, who was a Marine at the time, and I was taking him back to meet somebody to be driven back to his base. A mother drives her son over the canals, the aqueducts, past the farms, dairies, orchards, military cemeteries, to the place the Padres and soldiers rested, Los Banos, the baths, overgrown with yerba mansa, white flowers with a spattering of red that makes her think of Indians escorted up the creek and over the range to their barracks at Mission San Juan Bautista or San Jose. The twisting trunks of sycamores lining the anguished paths to a new god who liked fountains and reredos, who preferred his prayers in Latin or Spanish, who understood no Indian words for oak or elk, and had no affection for these sere hills, fluid as the sea yet golden, fragrant with tarweed and sage, dazzling with the light-breaking awns of needle grasses. The soldiers would tie their thumbs together, and when they stopped, they stared at the contorted bodies of rocks or the pools beneath, many for the last time, helplessness whipped into movement. Did their mothers follow from a distance? Where did they leave their grief? Would they ever understand this God with an appetite for sons? Their life was unraveling, and there are those who say that had the victims read Hegel or Marx, Had they known the least thing about GDPs or the future of crude, they might have adjusted better to their role in history, would have worked harder at synthesis, would have become useful vehicles for whatever they could smuggle into the new order. Smudge sticks or yerba mansa cures for the festering wounds of the civilized. Surely then they could forget 2 centuries of hunger, of singing old songs, of being beaten for remembering them, could be more grateful for the stipends their great-grandchildren were now getting to relearn their almost dead languages from the 2 or 3 elders with 1 foot in the grave and the other so tired, so very tired of marching to the tune of progress. How are we doing time-wise? I'm going to read a poem that Lee helped me with a lot, and I actually made some copies for those of you who want to see how bad it was before he got a hold of it. I made some copies of the, it's about a figure in a basilica in Poland that opens up, and on the inside is a triptych. And so I made some copies for those of you who might be interested. And then I put all of Lee's corrections on the back of these copies so that you could see how much work he was never paid for, you know, in this town. This is called Boots Macabre, and it's set in the Polish-Lithuanian borderlands. I hear them only at night, boots marching, keeping time, even though the snow is deep. Each time I think I have it wrong. There must be some other reason for this pulse. But they keep coming, the trudging feet, shod or bundled in rags, coming to invade or leaving in disgrace, returning home to hide or being marched to the Arctic regions. Armies of Piłsudski or Napoleon, followed by Russian tanks, barbed wires, spit-polished boots below costumes with pagan or Christian insignia. How much of it has the wild pear tree seen? The lake, the alder groves and broad oaks before they were struck down to warm the swollen feet. They are still now. Iron crosses return to church steeples. The trees are allowed to get old. The basilica enshrines the field altar of the Teutonic Knights, and only the Virgin, whose body opens to reveal 3 in 1, knows the laws of iron within this form. During the day, grebes ply the placid waters, looking for nest sites in the canes. At night, I waken to marching boots pacing the edges of the house, taking stock of what will be theirs when our time comes. And I'm going to close with, if I can find it here in this mess. I'm going to close with a poem called Sometimes the Light, but it looks like sometimes the light left. So I'm going to finish on a love note from one of the torrents, a very, very short fragment from the torrents. I cannot escape you. You are like the air in this aquarium of earth, like the sun on these darkening days, like the first notes of a song I cannot remember, like a cairn on a mountain trail, like a bear box keeping the food safe, like a nesting box nailed not too high up so the chicks don't have too far to fall. You are everywhere now, in every leaf and needle, in every dank, decaying thing, in all my helplessness, stupidity, dullness, intensity, some soft, small light shines. Thank you.
My name is Lillian Wegener, and I'm the current Poet Laureate of Modesto, California. You've just watched one of the many readings from the Bark and Dog Grill as part of the Second Tuesday Poetry Series. We've been running the series now for 3.5 years, and we're going strong. So we're very excited about the poetry community that is it's such a big part of our Modesto area and the Stanislaus County area as well. It's vibrant, it's exciting, and there's a lot going on besides the Bark and Dog poetry readings. As Poet Laureate, I'm very interested in trying to bring poetry to more elements of our county. I really want to include the whole county and all the 9 cities in it and the outlying areas. And so in doing that, some of the projects that I am working on is, includes the Stanislaus poem, which would be a collaborative poem written by the people of Stanislaus County. Everybody is invited to write a quatrain, a 4-line poem celebrating their area, whether that is the specific city that they live in, or the land around us, the creeks, the waterways, the tributaries, the way the sky looks at dusk in the summer, the orchards, the little animals that live around us, and the people, and all the many, many things that there are going on in our world here that are wonderful. So we want to put together this poem that really celebrates the space we have here and the people we are here, because as you might know, this area does not always get the best reputation, but it really is a wonderful place to live and to grow up and to work and to write poetry. So we are working on that. In addition to that, we're looking forward to continuing the, let's see, it's been going for 4 years now, but continuing the, oh gosh, the names escape me.
That's okay.
Sorry.
I'm just going to say.
Another project that we've been working on, and this has been going for 4 years, is the New Year's Poetry Challenge. This is a 30-day poetry challenge where I send out a prompt to anybody who's interested, and they write a poem a day for 30 days. Nobody checks up on you. It's not homework. It's not, you don't have to send your poem in anywhere. It's just a chance for people to think about poetry during really what's quite a busy time, the holiday season, and to kind of slow down and really think carefully about the world around them again. And prompts vary widely, and poets love some of them and other poets don't like those, and so you kind of pick and choose. We've had poets write all 30 poems. We've had poets who take all 30 prompts and put them away for later. Whatever you want to do is okay. But this will be coming up again in December of this year, usually around the beginning of the month. In addition to that, we are working on putting together the Modesto Poetry Center. I'm really excited about this. I think because there are so many activities going on in our town, and because so many poets are interested and excited, and there are several poetry groups that work together regularly, I think that there's a big case for putting together a poetry center, something like the Sacramento Poetry Center, where we can host readings and lectures that would be, of course, open to the public and hopefully free to everybody. And these lectures might have to do with the flora and fauna of our area. They might have to do with a certain poet. They might have to do with, us writing a certain kind of poem. And various workshops would be great. And I'd love to bring in poets from other areas to share their perspectives with us, since we in Modesto tend to get to know each other pretty well over time. And one thing we really want to do as part of the Poetry Center is to get poetry in the schools, to have many of the retired teachers who are also poets to take their talents into the schools and to bring poetry to a new generation there. So this would be a really exciting way to enrich current curriculums and to get kids excited about writing beyond the kind of prescripted writing that a lot of us have to do in school these days. We really want to bring poetry to senior centers and to care facilities. And we have the reading at the Bark and Dog, but not everybody can make it out on a Tuesday night. So we want to bring poetry to them as well. And so we have a bunch of poets who are very interested in doing this. And we're pursuing this in a number of different venues and are looking forward to getting that out into the world as well over the next year. So as Poet Laureate, I write poems for any occasion the city needs them, and you know, basically we're trying to tie poetry in to as many different aspects of life as we can, both, you know, for me as laureate, but also for you know, any poet out there who wants to have a place to share his or her work. So this year at the Bark and Dog, we have a lot of people coming in from the Sacramento area, from the Bay Area, from Fresno, and it's a really vibrant and exciting time to share. After the Bark and Dog readings, we always have an open mic. Anybody is welcome to come and bring a poem that they have that they're excited about reading, one they've written, even one they haven't written, but one that's meaningful to them. That would be appropriate there as well. So I think our open mics have been pretty successful, and it's always wonderful to hear other people's work. There's a lot going on, as I said, besides the reading. We are thinking about creating a Modesto Poetry Center, which would incorporate a lot of ideas that poets in the area have. This would include a lecture series, lectures on a number of topics pertaining to poetry and writing in general. It would include perhaps an annual poetry festival or poetry walk. It would include something called the Stanislaus poem, which would be a collaborative poem written by the people of Stanislaus County, where everybody celebrates their little part of the county in one way or another, and really creates something that we can all be proud of. This might be, you know, a Modesto poetry walk, as I mentioned, but there are so many ways to get involved and so many things that you can do. If you do want to get involved, you can contact me at wegenerspage@yahoo.com. And you'll get a periodic email with all submissions and readings and news of everything pertaining to poetry in it. And this will give you a chance to kind of pick and choose. And of course, you're welcome to get involved in the Poetry Center as that very new venture comes hopefully to fruition. So we're really looking forward to that. Thank you so much for your interest in poetry, and I'll look forward to hearing from you.